All right, what's going on? It's Bobby Skinner talking Giants. Want to just do a quick recap of some of the news of the day. Some good news and some bad news. The bad news: Collin Johnson tore his Achilles. Sterling Shepard is off the PUP list. So I want to start with the good news with Sterling Shepard. Obviously, he tore his Achilles 8 months ago. Um, Very quick comeback from that injury. It used to be a 12-month injury. Glad he's back. I'm interested to see what his role is for the 2022 Giants. One, he's coming off of a torn Achilles 8 months ago, so I'm sure there's going to be some getting used to and maybe not being the same Sterling Shepard that we saw. And obviously he's dealt with injuries a lot in his career. And they drafted Wan'Dale Robinson, and you have Galladay and Tony on the team. So it'll be interesting to see what amount of reps is he getting once he's back. Is he just a clear cut guy over Wan'Dale, or are they splitting it? What is the role with Sterling Shepard, who again I think some of these issues will be taken care of by themselves because of the injury issues of the wide receiver room in their past. But the reason the Giants brought him back, one, he's been the longest tenured New York Giant, and he's been good when he's on the field. I want to talk about that. But they brought him back, and they took, if they would have just cut him, there would have been a dead cap hit of $4.5 million, and we know the Giants were strapped for cap space this current season. They pushed that $4.5 million into 2023 as a void year, so they save an extra $4.5 million compared to if they would have just flat out cut him, and then he also took a pay cut from the $6 million savings that he would have the Giants would have gotten if they would have cut him. So next year he won't be on the team unless they decide to extend him, but there will be a $4.5 million cap charge to it. But let's talk about him on the field and what he brings when he's on it. He's an extremely trustworthy and reliable wide receiver when on the field. It's hard to call Sterling Shepard reliable because he's off the field a lot. But when he is on the field, that's what he's been for his New York Giants tenure. Last year with the Giants, he led the Giants in yards per game the last two seasons. Was like the only guy who wasn't held back by the Jason Garrett offense was Sterling Shepard. In full games with Daniel Jones last year, he averaged 8.7 catches and 94 yards per game. When he had those full games with Daniel Jones. The past 2 years with Daniel Jones, he's had a 78% catch rate. That's that's really high for a 2-season sample size, even though he's missed some games. And he's flexible. You can work him outside and in the slot, and he's effective from both. We've seen that over the last 4 years. And in this Brian Daboll offense, he's the best and the smartest route runner on a team, and a scheme that really values that. Check out the Cover 1 breakdown I did with those guys. We talk about, hey, this route needs to be flattened off. This route needs to be cut at 12 yards instead of 15. So there's freedom in it, but with the freedom comes responsibility to do the right thing. And Sterling Shepard is really the only guy on this team where I feel really comfortable. He's going to do the right thing, play in, play out, and there won't be those huge miscommunications because we've seen in the past with Daniel Jones that they've been on the same page. And again, that 78% catch rate over the last 2 years. So when on the field, Shepard should be playing as long as he's, at least close to what he was before the Achilles injury. Glad to see him back. Obviously, Matt Parrott and Nick Gates went to the reserve PUP, so they're going to be out the first 4 weeks minimum. Wouldn't expect to see Gates this year, Parrott possibly. So, but glad to have Shep back. Now the bad news. Collin Johnson, who had been having an awesome training camp, tore his Achilles in practice on the grass field. And it is alarming. I saw a stat that the Giants do have the most games missed due to injury the last since 2009, which is just crazy to see. But this wasn't on the turf, so you can't even blame this one on the turf. This was their grass practice field, and it just sucks for a guy who was having a good camp, a good preseason. He had 10 catches, 123 yards in the 2 preseason games so far. Big guy who's not, he's not like some slow lumbering player. He's got a little bit of speed to him, relatively speaking, with his size, and he seemed like a smart player too. And he looked to be shining. So it sucks to see a guy like that. And I think even if I didn't 100% agree with it, it seemed like he was going to be the 5th wide receiver on the depth chart. So where does that leave the Giants now? So Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard. Those 4 guys are locks for the roster. There's no way that they are not on the roster come week 1. So where does that leave the depth? There's 2, maximum 3 spots at wide receiver left. I think it's pretty simple what you do. Darius Slayton belongs on this roster. I think he belonged on this roster before Collin Johnson got injured. He's a guy who has NFL talent. We've seen him lead the Giants in yards in 2019 and 20, put up some touchdowns. Very flawed. He had an extremely disappointing season last year. And it wasn't just Jason Garrett. It wasn't just his role diminished. No, he was disappointing. He had a 10% drop rate, which is just insanely high. That's higher than Evan Ingram's ever done in his career. So he was disappointing, but I'm not ready just to throw away a guy who's put up some solid production, especially when you think about him being a 5th-round draft pick on the last year of his deal. I guess if you could get a trade partner and you could find something, maybe a 5th rounder. But even then, like if they trade for a 6th round, what are the likelihoods that 6th round returns anything? Most likely not. And I'm a guy who likes to trade guys for draft capital. But I just feel like Slayton's a guy that maybe you keep around, because one thing is Galladay, injury issues. Sterling Shepard, injury issues. Kadarius Toney, injury issues. So at some point, we're gonna need to play our last guys on the depth chart. If I knew those guys were gonna be healthy all year, I would trade Slayton away in a second. But I just don't trust that those guys will be healthy. So I do think you keep Slayton on the team. He's your best outside guy out of the top 4. And then after that, I would keep Richie James. I know you didn't have your 3rd slot guy on the team. But again, Shep injury issues. Wandale, I think, is going to have some growing pains. But also, Richie James gives you that returner value. He returned punts in the preseason game. He returned kicks with the 49ers. So you add someone as a returner, you keep 6 guys on the spot. So that means David Sills will get cut. I love Sills in the preseason. I just don't think he'll ever be able to do what those 2 guys could do in an NFL regular season game. And also, you can put that guy in the practice squad as well as Alex Bachman. He will make it to the practice squad. No one's going to claim Alex Bachman. And then C.J. Board, I know he hurt his ribs the other day in the preseason game, but I got no use for C.J. Board. He's not a great returner. He doesn't add much as a receiver. So that is what I would do. So again, make sure to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I should have asked that at the beginning of the video. I'm an idiot, I know. Appreciate you guys, and see you on the next video. Until then, let's go Big Blue.